USI has not learned its lesson. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video I want to talk about the recent passing of the motion by USI at USI Congress to deplatform and protest fascism. Now before I get into it, please like and share this video to give it a boost. At Congress 2021, USI voted to pass the motion deplatforming and rejecting fascism. Now, I think that this motion is a response to the controversy that happened in March last year, where members of USI, more specifically the President and Deputy President, were recorded saying that they were willing to give a Facebook group called Irish Students Against Fascism a list of students who USI believed were fascist. Now, the Irish Students Against Fascists, that group was actually run by the conservative news site The Berkeleyan, whose goal with the experiment was to expose the growing Antifa movement in the political institutions in Ireland. And they were quite successful in doing that. As a result of the controversy, USI Deputy President Michelle Byrne resigned. And at least she held her hands up and admitted that she did something that she shouldn't have. So I give her a little bit of respect for that. However, USI President Lorna Fitzpatrick, who was also happy to give the names of students who USI believed to be fascist to this group, who were openly admitting that they were planning to be physically violent to them, failed to take responsibility for what she did wrong. I think it's important to define what fascism is first before we actually progress into the motion, just so we're on the same page. Fascism is a system of government that controls all aspects of a citizen's daily life, like the economy, transportation, communication, and the flow of ideas. Fascism is a system that places the state over the individual, which is why fascist governments tend to be dictatorships. To be honest, it's kind of hard for them to be anything else, really. Here's the motion that USI passed. Deplatforming and rejecting fascism. Proposed by Technological University Dublin Students' Union. Congress notes, fascism is a form of authoritarian ideology that focuses on power that uses forcible suppression of opposing views and opinions. It is a regressive and violent ideology that has seen an increase in reporting over the past years and now has manifested into a full platform in 2020. Congress further notes, fascism actively harms minority groups, progressive movements, and grassroots community equity campaigns by any means available, using the guise of political stances to protect itself from deplatforming and rejection from societal-based values. Congress recognises that students come from all walks of life, opinions and beliefs. Political beliefs and alignments vary in all students, and it is important to recognise and support all students in their access, progression and completion of their education and/or progression to lifelong learning. Congress believes that as a representative body, we must ensure the protection of those who are most vulnerable in our society. Fascism actively aims to harm that core belief. We must ensure that access, progression and completion of education and its further progression into lifelong learning must be safe from violence, oppression or hindrance, particularly from those with harmful, deceitful or aggressive intent. As a collective union, we should seek to include as many diverse opinions as possible that does not actively harm, disrupt or deplatform the vulnerable, marginalised or oppressed in our society. Therefore, Congress mandates the President, in conjunction with the executive team, actively rejects and deplatforms forms of fascism, and to further reinvest resources into protecting the most vulnerable and or marginalised students in our society. Congress further mandates the Vice President for Campaigns, in conjunction with the executive team and President's working group, to engage in deplatforming actions such as counter-protests where safe, and to work with organisations, member organisations and relevant executive team officers to ensure training for officers in de-escalation, deplatform and rejection of fascism is rolled out to all officers during key training sessions. Now, I think the first notes on how fascists suppress opposing viewpoints and how it is a violent and regressive ideology are actually correct, and I think the motion actually doesn't do a horrible job in describing fascism. They don't do a particularly brilliant job, but it's not the worst description I've ever seen of it. Although, after that first point, it kind of goes downhill really, really quickly. Fascists don't target minority groups, like LGBT or racial minority groups, as the motion suggests. Fascists only target those who disagree with them politically. A great example of this is the Nazis. Only 10% of the Germans agreed with the Nazis. So how did the Nazis stay in power? Well, it was the other 90% who were barred from speaking, was the reason. And a lot of those who disagreed with the Nazis were sent to the concentration camps. And that's actually something a lot of people kind of forget about the concentration camps. They didn't start with the Jews. They started with their political opponents. Now, the Nazis only specifically targeted the Jewish population because of their alt-right beliefs of white supremacy and the Aryan race. Now, a big problem with today's political climate is that the term fascist is thrown out way too often, irregardless of whether the person being called a fascist is in fact a fascist or not. So it has almost completely lost its meaning. A lot of people, especially those on the political left, believe that if you call your opponent a fascist, you instantly win the debate, which just isn't true. The fact that last year USI were willing to give a list of students who disagree with them politically to a group who were open about their intentions to be violent towards those students, it really shocks me, to be fair. And I do think that the USI president and deputy president at the time almost should have been relieved that it was a catfish, that it wasn't a real Antifa group. Because just imagine the horror that would have come out afterwards if USI had given a list to a group who used that list to be violent towards students. There would have been a lot of outrage about that one, I think. It's those students who disagree with USI politically who will be targeted by this motion. And it'll be their views, which aren't fascist and aren't that controversial, will be suppressed and protested and deplatformed. Which is kind of ironic given the fact that that's what actual fascism actually is. So what do you guys think? Share your thoughts with me in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear them. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up button and don't forget to subscribe to keep up with my latest videos. I think this motion was partly meant to justify the actions of the President and Deputy President last year. Even though the fact that the Deputy President of USI resigned because of those actions shows that they're actions that just can't be justified. And yet they're trying to. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.